Welcome and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Last year, when we set out to publish the first Bain Southeast Asia Green Economy report, we did so with the intention of shifting the narrative from thinking about sustainability in the green economy, from one of risk mitigation to one of opportunity. And in doing so, we identified economic opportunities for the region in excess of $1 trillion by 2030. Turning our attention to this year's report, we have sought to push that thinking further to evaluate what is happening on the global stage, how is that translating to action here in Southeast Asia, and what do net zero, climate action, and other things mean for the region. Globally, it is clear we have reached a tipping point. The only question about where we're going next is what is the pace and pathway of change for climate action. Bain's Southeast Asia Green Economy Report tracks the pulse of this change, and we are very fortunate to have undertaken the study in 2021 with our thought partners, Microsoft and Temasek. In this context, we are thrilled to be here today as we share the insights from this year's report and what it means for net zero. This year's study is the product of engagement with more than 100 professionals and thought leaders in the industry globally and a great deal of bottom-up analysis. From this year's work, 4 key insights have emerged. First, it's clear that we're witnessing a moment of great transition in Southeast Asia and the world. The multi-decade transformation to decarbonize the global economy has accelerated as we move from a year of rising awareness in 2020 to a year of more urgent action in 2021. This moment of transition brings with it recognition at home and abroad of Southeast Asia's importance in the global climate agenda, both as a rich source of natural carbon sinks and as a critical starting point for many global supply chains. This newfound recognition is spurring some early green shoots of action in the region as we see important announcements from Southeast Asia governments, businesses, and investors and alike in just the past 18 months. But as the report finds, there is still much to be done if we hope to achieve our Paris climate imperatives for the region. The good news is we know what needs to be done. As we will share, there are significant opportunities for businesses, investors, and communities alike as we work towards net zero, taking into account the specific context and challenges of Southeast Asia as a region. To do this right, we must all work together. No single country, government, or business or person alike can achieve this alone. Net zero is a global challenge that requires collective action where everyone is needed. In thinking about our point of departure, 2021 was truly a year of transition for the world, with many tipping points that were reached. First, as the window to achieve net zero by 2050 narrows, it's clear the world is not on track, and there is urgent need for more climate action. According to the IPCC, we're on a path to exceed the 1.5 degree global warming threshold by the early 2030s. At the same time, there is growing recognition that Southeast Asia as a region is disproportionately exposed to climate crises. Of the 64 climate crises and events that were globally, where the Red Cross responded in 2020, more than a third of these were in the Asia-Pacific region, and nearly 15 of them were in Southeast Asia specifically. Furthermore, failure to act may cost Southeast Asia anywhere from $130 to $200 billion of incremental GDP or economic growth by 2030. This is a significant drag on the region, according to Swiss Re. Southeast Asia's prosperity is at real risk if we don't take action. Equally important is the fact that the global arms race is building for the green industries of the future. Since COVID, all leading economies around the world, China, the EU, and the US, have embarked on concerted efforts to drive an investment and establish new policies to build back better and create these new industries of the future. Combined, the EU and US have committed over $3 trillion in new capital to build out clean energy and related infrastructure over the next 5 to 10 years. Similarly, China sees a multi-trillion-dollar opportunity across renewables, the power sector, EVs, and many other sort of sectors. Southeast Asia faces a critical question and challenge at this time about how and whether it should step up to compete, or risk just being a consumer in the future of many of these sort of industries and missing out on the jobs, growth, and opportunities that go with them. At the same time, nature's role in decarbonizing the world cannot be understated, and the potential of Southeast Asia to serve as a material global carbon sink is significant. Southeast Asia is home to the world's most valuable forests, peatlands, and mangroves, which can materially contribute not just to the region's climate carbon reduction, but also the world's. But immediate action is needed to prevent peatlands, which may disappear by 2030, 50% of terrestrial forests by 2050, and significant biodiversity loss. If action is not taken today, a significant opportunity may be lost. So there is a clear and urgent action for Southeast Asia to do something. Against the backdrop of global action, we're also beginning to see more awareness and movement in Southeast Asia, and some bright spots emerging of what lies on the horizon. Firstly, governments have recognized the need to take action in the potential risks to both their environment and their economy if they don't. Singapore's National Green Plan is one of 4 green plans that were announced over the last 12 months, and others are in progress. Governments have also begun to set net zero ambitions, with both Indonesia and Laos committing to net zero in the future. In addition, countries are also beginning to put in place new restrictions to move us towards a decarbonized future, with governments restricting new coal-fired power generation, promoting electric vehicles and other alternative sources, and thinking more seriously about carbon taxes or other restrictions on emissions. Southeast Asia countries have also begun to work together in meaningful ways to look at how to promote investment and collaboration across borders. Some notable examples include the ASEAN Taxonomy Board for Regional Financial Framework and Phase 2 of the ASEAN Plan for Energy Cooperation. But it's not just governments, corporates are also taking action on a few different fronts. An important force that's emerging to drive change is global multinational corporations who have committed to new net zero targets that require them to not just think about their own sort of operations, but to proactively look at decarbonizing their supply chains and suppliers. Net zero is truly a game changer in shifting the dial in new and different ways. The push to address Scope 3 emissions warrants action by many companies to dig much deeper into the Southeast Asia ecosystem and the countries within which they operate. This is extremely important because the region serves as a trade route that is often the start of many supply chains, whether it's for natural resources such as rubber or palm, or other sort of electronics and semiconductors. But it's not just the global companies, it's also local ones, where we've seen significant change in mindsets by many family-run businesses. Such businesses and conglomerates account for 85% of the companies in the region over $1 billion in value, and are differentiated by a long-term generational mindset and streamlined corporate structures that allow them to move more quickly and lead the charge. While some of this change is clearly driven by self-interest as much as concerns for the environment, it's extremely positive to see this change beginning to happen. The third force that is also coming to the fore is changes and shifts by investors to think more critically about the green economy and sustainability. While the sustainability trend has been in place for many years, we have noticed a significant shift as investors start to think more critically about the green economy, not just as a source of risk mitigation as they think about ESG, but as a source of opportunity and growth with the green economy. Bain survey and research of many different investors across the space shows that they are beginning to move in new and different ways. And this is notable because it's more than just pressure that's coming from their investors and the like, but also the fact that they themselves clearly see the opportunities for transition. While this is extremely positive and awareness is building in the region, attention has yet to translate to the kind of bold, tangible action or results on the scale that is needed to address climate change and move Southeast Asia towards net zero. Firstly, Southeast Asia's commitments to emission reductions appear far less ambitious than what we are seeing in the rest of the world. The region trails in net zero commitments, with only 2 of the region's countries having committed versus nearly 30% globally. And importantly, neither of these countries has committed to embed those net zero targets in any kind of legal or regulatory framework that would commit them to action. Southeast Asia's latest NDCs, as part of the submissions into the COP26 climate change talks, still leave a 3 to 4 gigaton gap to achieve a Paris 1.5 degree aligned emissions level by 2030. Only half of Southeast Asia countries have increased carbon reduction ambitions in their latest emissions materially versus 70% of the global average. And all told, improvements from 2015 as a region have not been material versus global benchmarks. In fact, most Southeast Asia countries still predict an absolute increase in emissions by 2030, compared with Singapore being the only exception from an unconditional emissions target standpoint, while global emissions themselves on a per capita basis are actually expected to fall, whereas Southeast Asia is expected to see an increase and rise that will exceed the global average by 2030. Even fewer Southeast Asian countries have put in place tangible plans to move us towards these climate targets. The region's refreshed NDCs are very long on ambition, but short on plans on actually how this is going to be done. Corporates, too, also need to catch up with global peers in committing to a new, greener future. Only 25% of the corporates in ASEAN, or 4% of the market cap, have committed to science-based targets versus 27% globally. And while it is extremely positive that we are seeing more capital flowing into the green economy, it is still significantly short of what is needed. In 2020, we estimate in excess of $9 billion was deployed across green sectors in corporates, private equity, venture capital, and other infrastructure investments. And while this is a very good start, it's still much short of what is needed. An estimated $2 trillion in infrastructure investments over the next decade is required in renewable power generation, greener buildings, water and grid modernization, and other infrastructure. And clearly, this is going to require public-private partnerships and blended finance and other things to de-risk this investment, but much work needs to be done. So in short, we do see on the global level significant change, and it is positive to see some of those changes also beginning to happen in Southeast Asia with rising awareness. But we are well short of where we need to be in order to position ourselves for a better future for our economies, our people, and the environment. The good news is we do have ideas about what can be done and how to focus to accelerate these efforts. And with that, let me now hand over to my colleague, Gerry Mattios, to take you through that. Gerry?
Thank you, Dale. And indeed, we do have some good news. We actually know what needs to be done and what are the key building blocks for Southeast Asia's net zero transformation. Decarbonizing three sectors can address up to 90% of the emissions today. These include accelerating the energy transition, valuing our natural capital, and transforming the agri-food system. First, as a fast-growing developing region, Southeast Asia can leapfrog and pivot to cleaner sources of energy while maintaining its energy security. Immediate opportunities lie within energy efficiency solutions, solar energy with battery storage, geothermal as an alternative baseload source, and improvements to the region's grid infrastructure to address the significant demand for energy in the region, which is actually predicted to grow by over 100% by 2040. Over the medium to long term, investing in an electric vehicle ecosystem is a no-brainer for Southeast Asia, especially when we consider that other parts of the world are already ahead in this. Carbon capture is crucial for transition industries such as fossil fuels, which is prevalent in Southeast Asia, while hydrogen technologies, which has the potential to scale decarbonization in energy storage, chemical feedstock, and transport fuels, are big bets for our future. Now, let's turn a little bit into nature, where Southeast Asia really does hold some of the world's highest climate mitigation potential with its vast forests, peatlands, and mangroves. Connecting capital to the value of the region's nature is the opportunity of a lifetime. Investment opportunities exist today, whether it is in conserving Southeast Asia's terrestrial forest and peatlands, or commercializing remote monitoring and spatial activity productivity technologies. In the medium term, automated reforestation and conservation of blue carbon ecosystems will also become less risky and commercially valuable. Finally, opportunities exist to transform Southeast Asia's agri-food system, making its production more sustainable, particularly by empowering smallholders and establishing the region as a global food tech hub. For example, in alternative proteins, which is a very fast growing segment in the food technology today. In the near term, developing easy to use and cost-effective production tools that will help to innovate through that will help to promote through innovative financing models will definitely drive adoption among smallholders and boost productivity and sustainability of the sector while driving value. For example, there are companies out there who are already making benefit of these ideas and these approaches today. There's an Indonesia startup, eFishery, that developed an Internet of Things enabled feeders to automate fish feeding schedules. This way, they're able to reduce waste and improve efficiency, and established a digital platform that improves access to financing and to their consumers. Innovations like these that address the traditionally underserved in the region can have significant impact, not only in the transition to net zero, but also to local communities and, of course, governments. Over the horizon, opportunities also exist in developing cell-based alternative protein, which can help the region fulfill its potential as a global food tech hub while meeting the region's very fast-growing nutritional needs. Actually, there are two critical enablers that we see here that will help make this happen and accelerate the transition. First, building a robust voluntary carbon market will allow Southeast Asia to balance climate targets with economic growth by compensating for hard-to-abate emissions and scale decarbonization by pricing carbon. Further on, data and digital innovations will empower leaders to jointly solve problems at scale. We sharpen data-driven insights and intelligent decision-making models that can vastly improve energy efficiency, climate resilience planning, and natural capital monitoring, to name a few. The building blocks for Southeast Asia's net zero are very clear. It is now time for key actors to come together to catalyze the journey and drive the region to outcomes. The next step is, what do we need to do if we think about the different individual and collective action? Well, we have a playbook to be able to achieve that. And we know that it takes different actors across to make it happen. Whether it's the investors or the businesses or the governments and the communities, everybody has a role to play in this transition. First of all, investors. Investors are extremely important to be able to bring the capital that is necessary to support COVID-19 strained governments that have actually had capital deployed on various COVID-19 initiatives. We also need to look at investors for bringing capital that will help develop sustainability and transition-linked financial products. These are already available in some markets today, but these products need to be far more available, distributed across the different economies, but also need to have the right balance for different business and different sectors. And then finally, we need to be able to have investors to bring in this internationally recognition of standards and different frameworks that will help create a level playing field. When you look at businesses, this is all really about decarbonizing all scopes of emissions within their value chain. We do know that businesses that are successful in sustainability are the ones that actually treat sustainability as a value creation lever rather than risk mitigation. To do that, they need to innovate and find ways how to create that commercial value from low carbon operations, and that can then transition into the products and the services. Governments, on the other hand, have a role to play when we're thinking about creating robust net zero plans, having the right policies that will be able to encourage businesses and encourage investors to invest and drive decarbonization initiatives. And then finally, be able to balance the socioeconomic growth to ensure there's a just transition from today's economy to a greener economy. And finally, communities. Communities need to crystallize the shift to conscious consumption by consumers becoming even more aware of the implications, the benefits of decarbonization. Consumers are already becoming extremely aware of sustainability. Many of them are actually voting with their feet on more sustainable products, more sustainable services. And we see that trend potentially growing and increasing over time. Communities also need to proactively engage and lobby stakeholders for systemic change to happen. Again, in some parts of the world, that is very evident, for example, in Europe. But here in Southeast Asia, it's something that it can happen even further and will help accelerate this decarbonization. At the end of the day, there is a need for collective action. There needs to be a need for an ecosystem co-innovation approach, and also an importance for regional collaboration, something that we'll be able to cover more in the next slide. Well, ultimately, scaling Southeast Asia's efforts and transition to green economy will require collaboration. There are several key imperatives for Southeast Asia's collective action plan. There needs to be an ecosystem-wide co-innovation and collaboration. which is very important in order to accelerate the commercialization of new low-carbon technologies that address Southeast Asia's specific needs. There are a lot of examples to consider, but some of them include such as simple-to-use, cost-effective productivity tools that are accessible and easily adopted by regional smallholders and small and medium enterprises. We also need to look at value chain-wide alliances and partnerships that will help increase in the sharing of data, but also the tools and standards across the ecosystem that will then help become more effective and more scalable impact. Collective transition support, tapping into blended financing and public-private partnerships is also critical. Both private and public sectors can support the transition of the region's hard-to-abate sectors, such as fossil fuels, and to mitigate the impact of stranded assets like palm plantations and coal plant closures. Collective effort is also required if we want to reduce barriers to green financing and build capacity for smallholders and MSMEs, who actually make up to 40% of the GDP and 75% of the workforce. Finally, training the region's green workforce of the future will for sure be needed. And a collective effort is required to make this happen, because employers, governments, non-profit organizations, and higher education institutions all need to play a role. Finally, there needs to be regional collaboration. No single country or country alone has the answer nor the resources to all these requirements and the capabilities that we need to achieve this transition. We must look to regional collaboration to develop a holistic Southeast Asia transition plan that accounts for diverse nation-state developmental needs and targets. For example, a cross-border carbon trading system will incentivize conservation of Southeast Asia's natural capital while meeting regional requirements for high-quality offsets. A regional renewable energy plan with interconnected grids for optimized energy sharing across countries will enable Southeast Asia to more efficiently connect demand to supply and be able to solve for all this variability that exists in renewable energy generation. Bringing everybody together under one plan with common efforts and sharing resources will ensure a smooth transition to the green economy. Finally, some closing remarks. The sustainability journey holds immense potential for Southeast Asia to transform locally and make a measurable contribution globally. Southeast Asia is needed for the global targets on green economy and the green transition and the road to net zero. We know what it takes and what the core elements of a net zero plan are. We need to look at energy transition, valuing nature, and the agri-food transformation, whilst the voluntary carbon markets and data and digital will be the critical accelerants and enablers. For the CEOs and business leaders, the future depends on what we do now. This is why we believe the time to act is now. And the way we would like to think of ACT is as aiming high with bold ambitions, which are able to be translated into tangible actions in a relatively short time. Make sure to commit the right level of resources and the right level of investments that will help make the transition and see it through. And finally, it's really important to be able to track and report against a clear set of targets that we can communicate across our stakeholders, but also directly connect with the global targets that our planet needs. If we're able to make this transition, the future is bright. By 2030, Southeast Asia's green economy has the potential to provide up to $1 trillion of economic opportunities, along with millions of new green jobs. The quality of our future, the quality of our kids and our children's future depends on our actions today. Southeast Asia is at a pivotal moment, and the path to net zero is already being laid out for us. The choice is clear, and the answer is simple. Invest and act now to achieve a net zero future for Southeast Asia and the world together. Thank you very much, and we look forward to your questions.